So one of the things that there is to realize when it comes to realizing the truth or realizing your true nature is that all of the ways that you've been being in your life, all of the things you've done that you feel guilty about, all the things that you've done that you're proud of, all the mistakes you've made, all the habits you have, all the addictions you have, all of the ways that you are that don't work. You're completely innocent of all that. This is an important aspect of what it means to realize your true nature, is to understand that you and the rest of humanity are completely innocent, because all of us have been born into the world and conditioned based on the circumstances that we were born in. And that conditioning produced the personality that you've been being, and you had no choice about it. You had no choice about the thoughts that that personality had. You had no choice about the fears that personality had. You had no choice about what caused that personality to get angry. You had no choice about the behavior of that personality. Therefore, you're innocent. This is why teachers like Jesus Christ taught forgiveness, because the truth is, forgiveness doesn't mean that you're bad and wrong and we're going to let you off the hook. No, forgiveness means to give yourself back the innocence that is the truth of your nature, to give yourself back the innocence that is the reality of who you are. You know, when you look at this from the view of a personality, it creates confusion, right? Because then you might say, well, okay, if I'm innocent of everything I've ever done, and I'm innocent of the things I'm proud of, as well as the things that I think that I've done wrong, and if that's the case for the rest of humanity, then how do we proceed? Because it damn sure looks like some people aren't innocent, right? Well, that's the thing, you know, that's why this work begins at home, because you can't understand what it means to forgive. You can't understand what it means to have unconditional love. You can't understand how to be a member of the family of humanity until you realize your own true nature. If you realize your own innocence and you experience the freedom that gives you, and if you realize your own innocence and that gives you the ability to begin to pay attention to the conditioning in such a way where you're not identifying with it anymore, which means that you can now start to be realized as a human being, and start to be realized as the kind of human being that can love unconditionally and can get along with humanity and can get along with your family and can get along with the politicians and can get along with your neighbors, and, you know, like that. But it begins at home. So first you have to look and see, you know, where are you at with yourself? You know, can you let go of what you hold on to about yourself that you think is wrong with you? Can you let go of what you think is wrong with you? Because there is nothing wrong with any of us. The conditioning is what puts the right-wrong business into the mind. The conditioning is what puts the idea that something's wrong with you, something's wrong with me, something's wrong with humanity, something's wrong with other people. And this is the craziness, you know. Human beings are living in an identity crisis all the time, living in an identity crisis. Somebody, one of my students online sent me an email, and he said, what are your thoughts about this reality that's going on right now in the world about sexuality, this reality, you know, where everybody is choosing their gender regardless of what they are physically. He wanted to know what my thoughts on that were. And I thought about it, and I looked at it, and the answer that I sent to him was that it's an example of identity insanity. This is identity insanity. Since people really don't know who they are, and the idea of dealing with that you don't know who you really are is unacceptable, people are compelled to have an identity. You're compelled to have an identity. You're compelled to fill the gap. You're compelled to fill the void. You're compelled to deal with the blind spot of this idea of feeling this sense in your gut that there's some void here, there's some emptiness here. There's something here that is seeking fulfillment. There's something here that's wanting to be relaxed. There's something here that's wanting to be known. There's something here that it's wanting to be alive. It's wanting to be free. It's wanting to be satisfied. There's something here that wants that. And it drives people, to seek an identity. And if you're going to seek an identity, if you're going to play the identity game, right, then you want to try and have an identity that's going to have juice. You want to have an identity that's going to look good. You want to have an identity that's going to be unique, right? And so if you were a person that grew up and the identities that you got in your conditioning weren't very pleasing to you or weren't very attractive, you didn't think that you could really compete in groups of other people with your particular identity, and so you felt depressed or you felt lonely or you felt insignificant, right? And then you hear that, wait a minute, you can be a man and re-choose your gender and become a unique sexual being. So there's an attraction. Oh, there's an identity that I can have that will make me different, that will make me unique. And so I can choose that identity. And if I choose that identity, then I can have people call me a different, I don't even know what the thing, they, them, I don't understand it. I can't, it just doesn't even make any sense to me, right? That's how unique it is, right? But, so that's what the answer to the thing is. It's an identity. It's identity insanity. It's what's causing the craziness that most of humanity is experiencing, in terms of what is your identity. We were born into a world where you have to do your best to create an identity that will allow you to compete with the herd, instead of just being, somebody that is ordinary, right? So you're not going to be ordinary. So you have to look at it's like a hand that you've been dealt of cards, right? You have to look at your identity. What cards do I have to play? Well, let's see. I have a decent looking body. That's a good card. It's an ace. I don't have a lot of money, so that's maybe a 10. Let's see, what else do I have identity-wise? I don't have a lot of money, but I'm unique sexually. I'm not I have a man's body, but I'm a woman. That's interesting. Maybe I can play that card. You see how the game goes, right? And so when you meet people at a party, right, they have their hand of cards there, and they'll play cards when they meet you. Oh, hi. What's your name? Oh, what do you do for a living? Card comes out. Okay, and then they look to see how you're dressed and see if you have high fashion designer clothes and everything, and and then people will say, I am worth $1 billion. So that's a big card to play, right? How much money you have, right, and so forth. And so that's what goes on in parties, everybody starts, playing their cards, and people look to see, well, is your hand a good match for my hand? Maybe we ought to get together, right? Because you're beautiful and I'm beautiful, and you have a lot of money and I have a lot of money, or you have a lot of money and I don't have a lot of money. That would be a good card to play, And that's the identity game that people play. It's empty, it's not really fulfilling, it causes a lot of anxiety, it's run by fear, right? It's run by fear. What is the fear that it's run by? The fear that it's run by is that you're nothing. It's run by the fear that you're nothing, that you don't matter, that you're insignificant, that you're nobody, right? And isn't it an interesting paradox that that's the truth? Not only is that the truth, but that in that truth lies the experience that you're seeking with all the identities. Within the truth that you're nobody and you're nothing lies the experience that you're after with all the identities. What do I mean by that? That you're nobody, you're nothing. Well, the awareness itself, what is the awareness? Is that a body? Right? Is that a thing? No, it's not a thing and it's not a body. So the truth be told, you're nothing and you're nobody. And when you experience being nothing and nobody, there's a natural experience of freedom, happiness, satisfaction, well-being, and peace. But wait a minute, so for most people, that wouldn't even, to hear somebody say what I just said, to most people would say, oh, that's crazy. That's crazy talk, right? Yeah, well, the reality of it is the opposite of that, which is the game that most people are playing, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. And all the evidence shows that that's crazy talk, right? Because people are unable to act in their own best interest. People are killing themselves physically. They're killing themselves with stress. They're worrying themselves to death about the cards they have to play in the world, what their identity is, how much money they have, how good they look. And the thing that drives the fear that drives the whole thing is that everybody knows, even though they try and hide from it as much as possible, but everybody knows in the end you're going to lose this game. Everybody knows, no matter how beautiful your body is, it's going to get old and it's going to not be so beautiful. No matter how much money you have, you're going to lose it, right? No matter what you have, no matter what the cards are you have in your hand, in the end, you're going to lose this game. So now that increases the anxiety, doesn't it, right? That creates a midlife crisis, right? It creates an identity crisis, right? Because now you're constantly paying attention to your identity, Do people, the way this shows up, right, is that when you think about yourself in relationship to situations you're in relationship to relationships that you have with other people, right? What I mean about this identity crisis is that the way it occurs for you is you think about what they think about you, don't you? Yeah. You're hoping they think well of you, You're hoping that you're attractive to them, right? A lot of people, when they're in midlife, they have affairs, right? Why do they have affairs? Because they're concerned that they're no longer attractive, that their body's getting old and so forth, right? And so they have an affair, and the reason they have the affair is because somebody thinks I'm attractive, right? So this is the insanity that goes along with identifying with the conditioning, right? And as I said to you earlier, the meditation is a practice that you can slowly begin to move away from this conditioning, from this identity crisis, and slowly begin to allow yourself to experience what's possible at all times, this happiness that's available at all times. And who is it that's happy all the time? It's the awareness that you have been stepping over all of your life. It's the awareness that you've been ignoring all of your life. That's what's called ignorance. But it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You couldn't help it. There was no other way you could have done it, right? But now here you are, hearing about this. Here you are hearing that your conditioning and your identity is a failure. It's never going to succeed. You will never be happy as a conditioned identity. That's not going to happen, right? And it's interesting because most of the people that come to this class, if you look around, are mid-age or older, except for I think you. But you're an exception, right? The reason for that is because the younger people, they're playing the game. They're not interested in this, Every once in a while, a young person would come to this class, like somebody would bring them to this class. They couldn't make it through the class. They'd leave because after a while, they're sitting here thinking, I'm not interested in this. Why would I be interested in this? You know what I mean? I can't get a date here. Why would I be interested in this? So that's why it's an older person's game, right? Because if you've been around for a while, you start to realize that this isn't working very well. And if there's no alternative to this, right, then I better get on some heavy medication or start to become an alcoholic or something, you know? Because this is too goddamn uncomfortable to live this life like this, right? So here you find yourself in this meditation class and the teacher is telling you, oh, don't worry, there's this possibility that you can be happy, right? So then you're interested in that, aren't you, right? There's possibility. And it can be explained to you in a way where it makes sense. It's not just pie in the sky. It can, you know, and as a psychologist, I can talk about it in a way with people that they can kind of get the idea, that you can conceptually understand this possibility, and so it's attractive, you know, so you want this, right? And then I say to you, well, then you have to practice meditation so you can start to come out of the conditioning, right? Come out of the condition you're in. Well, then most people who go to practice meditation discover that they can't succeed at practicing meditation. Well, it's not that they can't succeed at practicing meditation, it's that their conditioning won't allow them to practice because their conditioning is impatient. Their conditioning doesn't want to do something that takes too much time, right? So, you know, like I've said, there was a Vietnam veteran that came to this class one time who was suffering from PTSD, which is a horrible life to live, right? And after listening to me talk for a while, he had a question. I said, what's your question? He said, how long is this going to take? How long is this going to take? Because if it's going to take too long, I don't have time, I'm busy. And he's suffering from PTSD, right? But that's how the conditioning is. The conditioning won't let you meditate, right? The voice in your head will come in and tell you, this isn't a good time to meditate. You don't want to do this. You're not really interested in this, right? You want what it has to offer, but you don't want to have to go through the process to get it. The process is going to take time. How long? I don't know. It's the same, you know, the answer to that question, how long will it take through meditation for you to realize your true nature? Well, that's the same answer to a question, how long will it take for you to get a black belt in karate? Same answer. Same answer. It's going to take as long as it takes, right? But if you really understand the situation, if you really understand the condition that you're suffering from, right, that shouldn't matter. Just the fact that the possibility exists should be enough for you to be inspired to do whatever it takes to realize the possibility. But your conditioning still has such a grip on you. The hypnotic grip that it has on you will keep you from being able to do the practice consistently and long enough to break away from the conditioning enough for the realization to occur, for you to realize your true nature, right? So here's the thing, you know, whether it's done through meditation, because meditation isn't absolutely necessary to realize your true nature, right? It's a tool, it's something you can do to start to break away from this process of being stuck in the conditioning, which happens through thinking, right? It's a tool, right? But even if you succeed in meditation, where you're meditating consistently every day, and because of that, you start to experience some relief from the conditioning, right? Even if that's the case, something has to then begin to happen outside of the formal practice of meditation. You have to begin to apply something that you're doing in the formal practice of meditation. You have to begin to apply that in your ordinary life, moment-to-moment existence. What is that? And this is the key, right? Because I was thinking earlier today, I'm always trying to come up with, what can I say to you guys, you know, that will do the trick? Well, I know the answer to that is there's really nothing I can say that'll do the trick, but I can't help but do it anyway. Somehow it's ended up being what I'm stuck doing here. But the tip that I would give you today is this. The awareness that you are is always available. It is with you always, all the time. It is never not there. It is your true nature, right? Now, you're confused. I know, I understand. You're confused. You think you're something other than that, and you can't help it. That's your conditioning, okay? So how do you get out of this mess, right? First of all, you have to develop your ability to pay attention consistently. That's what you're practicing in meditation. That's what you're practicing, right? You can practice doing that playing tennis, right? Because you can't be a good tennis player if you can't pay attention consistently during the game, right? You can practice that doing anything, really, right? But you have to have the ability to pay attention consistently. Why? Because what there is to pay attention to is being aware of the thought process that has you be your conditioning. Being aware of the thought process that has you be your conditioning. If you can develop your ability to pay attention and watch that consistently, that'll bring you out of it. Because while you're watching that consistently, right, you're watching it from who you are. You're watching it from the awareness that is your true nature. When you watch the thinking activity and you're aware that the thinking activity is producing an illusion, it's producing an identity, it's producing your craziness, right? Now, the thing about that is that then people say, well, wait a minute, I can't stop thinking, so if you're telling me that my thinking is producing my craziness, that you're asking me to do something I can't do, right? Well, I'm not asking you to do something you can't do because you've never been the thinker of the thoughts. That's part of the craziness of thinking, is to think you're thinking the thoughts, right? So if you understand that, and you can look at the thinking, you can look at the thinking, can you not? Yeah, you can look at the thinking, you can look at the voice in your head, Most of the time you're identified with it, right? Most of the time you think you are it, and you're living your life as it, okay? But you can, even if it's only for a brief period of time, you can look at the voice in your head and see what it's saying, right? And if you start to practice doing that, and if you start to practice that more and more consistently, you will start to come out of identifying yourself with the voice in your head, and you'll start to come out of identifying yourself with the thinking activity. And as you come out of that, you'll experience the freedom not to be your conditioning. You'll experience the freedom not to be your conditioning. You'll experience the ability to unconditionally love yourself and unconditionally love everybody else, right? Because once you're free from the conditioning, you're free from all of the taking things personally, right? Because your conditioning is not personal. I mean, your awareness is not personal. Your awareness is, one of the things that I said here a while back is one of the things you can do, like a little experiment, is just to try to imagine what it would be like right now not to be thinking. Just to imagine that. And you can kind of get a sense of it, what it would be like not to be thinking. And the sense of it that you get, part of the sense of it that you get is that it's not personal anymore. It takes thinking to make your life personal. Without thinking, it's not personal. Awareness is just here. It's just here. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't want anything. It's not going anywhere. It's not stuck in time, You ever notice, if you really pay attention, your life is an in-between activity. It's an in-between activity, right? Right now, you're between here and dinner at home tonight, right? You're between here and what happened earlier today, and this is what's happening now, and this is between what's going to happen next. You're living in between. Your life is an in-between experience all the time, right? So you're never anywhere. You're never anywhere. You're always going somewhere or leaving from somewhere, right? You're never anywhere. This is one of the reasons why your life is like built on this momentum of time, right? It's moving, it's going somewhere. You're looking forward to things. You're remembering things, right? And the way it occurs for you is that the one place that human beings avoid is the present moment. The one place that human beings avoid is the present moment, right? Because in order to be in the present moment, you have to let go of your identity. Don't forget, you only know who you are because you remember it, right? So if you let go of the past and you're living in the present moment, you have to let go of your identity to really live in the present moment, right? Which means that you have to stop identifying yourself with the thought process and allow yourself to experience the freedom of just being present, just simply being present, not knowing anything, not knowing anything. Because the awareness doesn't have to depend on information. The awareness immediately, don't you recognize that right now that you know where you're at? You know where you're at, you know what's going on, right? That will be that way without thinking, right? But you think you have to think about it in order to know what's going on. But you don't have to think about it to know what's going on. You naturally know what's going on all the time, and you can't enjoy what that's like. You can't experience the freedom of that because you're plugged in. You're plugged in constantly to the thought process, right? Well, this is not about turning off the thought process. You don't have to turn off the thought process. All you have to do is stop identifying with it. Right? How are you going to stop identifying with it? By starting to be aware of the truth of what you are as the awareness of thinking, not the thoughts, not the thinker of the thoughts. You're the awareness of it. That's all. That's the shift. You're the awareness of what's happening, not what's happening. You're the awareness of time. You're not stuck in time. You're aware of time. The awareness is always free. So meditation is a way, to begin to practice just breaking free enough to start to get a sense of the possibility, to start to get a sense of the relief that it makes available to you. To reduces stress, of course it reduces stress. It helps the body relax, of course it helps the body relax. But even more than that, it allows you to begin to experience a different life. A life that is not heavy, a life that is not fear-based, a life that will not come to an end. A game that doesn't end, right? What do I mean by that? A life that doesn't come to an end. If you experience your true nature as awareness, it's just what's so that the awareness doesn't have a beginning and have an end. Has no beginning or has no end. It's just what's so that the awareness is not physical. And therefore, obviously, if it's not physical, whatever is physical that has a beginning and an end does not apply to your true nature.